Hey everyone, Matt Cellitti here. I am a Dubspot course designer and instructor, and you're listening to a new track I made with my favorite new synthesizer. This one is called Monark from Native Instruments. Absolutely fat, absolutely brilliant. We're seeing this big trend towards all these recreations of classic hardware synthesizers, and I tell you what, this one is going toe-to-toe with anything I've heard recently, and it's a great addition to have a wonderful subtractive synthesizer at your disposal. So let's take a look at it, and I think you'll be impressed. So the first thing you're going to notice, obviously, is that the GUI looks very familiar. Obviously, it looks like the Minimoog, and there's something to be said for this simple, basic layout like this. It's very easy to look at. It's very easy to tweak. There's not a ton of parameters that you have to worry about, and I find that really to be an asset with this synthesizer. You can also see that a lot of these knobs are quite big, meaning there's a lot of detail that can go into them when you're playing. Whether you're using the mouse, or ideally if you're using a controller, something like Machine. For instance, when I pull this into Machine, you can see everything is pretty much a button push away. I don't have to work too hard. And so you can truly play it almost like an analog synthesizer. Very smooth filters, as you'd expect. So before we get into it and I bore you with all these synthesizer terms, let's just quickly take a look. It's tons of presets inside of Monark. I mean, the basses alone, you're looking at 100 plus presets. Leads, percussion, you want to get even beautiful kicks. You know, the Minimoog can do it all. So effects. Maybe you need some thunder in your new mix. You get the idea. So one of the things that I think is greatest about this is this classic. So what you're going to see in this snapshot is basically all these amazing classic presets. And in typical NI fashion, you can see the way they're named. Blue Sunday, for instance. Or what did we got here? There was Neon Piano. What else do we got? Stir It Down? Tom Sawyer? All this good stuff. So what they did is they went in and recreated all these amazing presets from your favorite songs. And some of these you'll be able to learn by seeing them. Some of them might not be so clear, but at least you can use these as a starting point. So I'm going to play through some of my favorites so you can hear right away. See if you recognize these. Pretty spot on. A Monday warrior, mean pride. Don't worry, you're not going to get me singing too much. Here's some Gary Newman. Very good stuff. Blue Monday from New Order. Can't get by without Funky Town. Beautiful. Kraftwerk. Plenty of Kraftwerk presets in here. Radio activity. Oh my God. And classic Daft Punk. Amazing stuff. So right off the bat, you're going to have plenty of great things. Now imagine, say you bought Complete 9 Ultimate from Native Instruments and you have all these amazing extra complete effects that you'll be able to add to these amazing presets inside of Monark. Say, for instance, you take something like Shine On You Crazy Diamond from Pink Floyd, run it through a fantastic tube equalizer, throw in a nice delay from someone like FabFilter, and then lastly throw on a classic Lexicon Studio Reverb, and you'll get amazing, amazing sounds. You can hear, using a little portamento, using the pitch modulation. Let's turn up the contour a little bit, and you can hear it really bite. So this synth is really capable of doing some amazing things. Now, what I always suggest is starting any synthesizer off in its initial phase. And so luckily there is a preset under the user bank called initial. Now, half the time with something as easy as Monark, straight up beautiful subtractive synthesis, I almost wish there were no presets because it's so easy to dial in all your sounds right off the bat. Now let's quickly take a look at what's going on here. 3 oscillator sections. You have your standard fare of waveforms, just like you would expect on the Minimoog. And you can easily combine these and turn these up however you like. So maybe you just start with a simple square wave. And then using the mixer section, you're able to bring in multiple oscillators. And of course, these oscillators can be tuned up and down. Right away. If you want to double click to get back to perfect tuning, you can easily do that. Now, one note to say about Monark is that these oscillators, there's tons of attention that went into this. Not only the oscillators, but the filter, everything really. Tons of attention went in to make this purely sound like true analog. And if you don't believe me, and if you're one of these reactor nerds, just go inside and look and get an idea of the brilliance that is happening inside of here. This scares the heck out of me. Just simply looking at the different oscillator sections. I mean, so much detail went in here under the hood to make it sound real. To the point where every single oscillator is tuned slightly different. So even if you're using the square wave, you can hear it differently on each oscillator as you bring it in through the mixer. The key tracking information for every single oscillator is different. So as we're playing up and down the keyboard, certain oscillators may drift ever so slightly out of tune. If you actually look at the B panel here, you can go in and even control some of this stuff. The actual leakage of the oscillators, you know, whether they're going to even, you're going to be able to hear them when you're not even pressing keys, and the amount of drift and everything here. You can really get into detail. And there's some nice modern functions for the way the keyboard's going to react. For instance, if you don't want it to react so true to monophonic form, you can basically go in and give priority to the last note that you ever hit. You can have it so the envelope is going to re-trigger on every single note. Things that are going to make it easier to play right off the bat. So while it's staying true to its root, there's some nice little modern functions in there. So what I also want to show you is true to analog style is that you can even make this synthesizer self-oscillate through the filter. So what we're going to do is I'm holding down a note. You can't hear anything because the mixer section is nothing is turned on. But let's drop the cutoff all the way down, and then I'm going to crank this resonance real quick. So we can't hear anything until I start to bring up the cutoff. And there we go. So we sort of have a self-oscillating filter. This sort of sounds like a sine wave. As I go up and down the keyboard, you're not going to hear anything until I would turn on key tracking. So right away, you can get some really interesting results. Now combine that with some of the feedback. Overload the filter. And you can see where things could start to get interesting right away. Not to mention once you bring in some of the other oscillators. So real briefly, I want to talk. It's very easy to just kind of get in here and shape your sounds right away. So for instance, let's bring in 2 oscillators. And you can see how fat that is. If you want to slightly get more of a unison feel, slightly detune one. You get some nice natural phasing right there. And you can bring in 3 oscillators if you want, or you can use the 3rd oscillator or the noise generator as a modulation source. So let's first look at just simply using that on as a pitch modulation. So the way this works is you can designate the mix, whether you want it from the noise or the oscillator 3 actually, and then you use your mod wheel to dial in the amount of modulation. So you can see right there, that's kind of how I was getting that vibrato in that Pink Floyd sound. And if we tune up this oscillator, you're going to hear it's going to sound differently. It's a great way to get vibrato going. But you can also do great things like change to a sawtooth, for instance. And then let's actually go in and adjust this to modulate the filter cutoff. And let's adjust our filter up and turn up our modulation. And of course, every single waveform is going to react differently. So right off the bat, you can get amazing things. So really, I mean, this is just a fantastic synth in general. It's going to teach you synthesis. It's very easy to operate. If you want to get it in and dial and shape your sound right off the bat, very easy. Using the contour, which is basically your filter envelope. So the way this works is, let's actually open up the decay. And the way the contour is going to work is that, imagine this knob is basically doing this in real time. So right off the bat, depending on how I set the decay amount, it's going to wait, in this instance, about 1 second for an imaginary envelope to basically take this filter from open all the way down to this resting point. And as we start to adjust not only sustain, but filter, attack, and decay, you can see right off the bat where you're able to start getting in nice punchy bass sounds. Now keep in mind there's two feedback algorithms, A and B. You will notice the difference. One is going to be more subtle, a little warm, and one is going to immediately mangle by basically rerouting the output back in right before the filter stage. So, I mean, you have to get into the synth. You have to mess around. It is absolutely brilliant. There's something to be said about limiting yourself to a simple subtractive synthesizer like this. And especially when it sounds this good, you're going to be able to work in all sorts of ways. Let's look at kind of a more modern style just before we take off. This is kind of a, how do you pronounce this guy? Todd Terry, even though he's using a moniker like Todd Terry to throw back to one of the ultimate house kings. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. Todd Terry, yeah, something like that. Something Swedish, Norwegian. But you can see, again, controlling it, adding some Pultec style EQ from Native Instruments Tube series, throwing a little 90 on it with a nice boost. Let's hear what it sounds like without it. It's really adding a lot. Brightening up around 8K is going to give you some more of that bite. And of course, from there, we can go in, we can throw it in with some reverb. And a little more delay, and immediately you have super hard, bright, plucky sounds. Of course, you got to run that through an LA2A emulation, again from Native Instruments, and you can find us in Complete 9 Ultimate. So, hope you like it. It's so good. It's so fat. It's so beefy. I don't think I can use anything else ever again for a synth bass. I'm just in love with it. So, go get your hands on it and enjoy.
Welcome to Dubspot. We believe in providing you hands-on experience right away. Whether you're completely new to music and want to turn the sounds in your head into a musical reality, or you're an experienced artist looking to refine your skills and add new tools to your arsenal, we're ready to meet you at your level. For students of all ages, all levels, and all styles of music, Dubspot is here to help you achieve your goals. With course offerings both online wherever you are and at our school in the heart of New York City, we are ready to guide you through the next phase of your musical transformation. Whether you want to produce music, DJ, or do both, you've come to the right place. Come explore Dubspot for yourself, become a part of our community, and make music.